And hello, movie lovers. So, I'm going to go on ahead and go over my favorite practical effects in film. So, what you guys can do real quick is go over to Good Pods. Good Pods is basically your social networking for podcasters. If you're a podcaster yourself or you like listening to podcasts, just go on ahead, head over there, rate individual episodes, tell us what you think about those episodes. Also, too, rate us on, of course, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you guys get your major podcasts from. And with further ado, let's go on ahead and get on with the show. All right. And like I said, I'm going to be talking about my favorite films with practical effects in them. First off, I just want to go on ahead and talk about something real quick before I actually go do a deep dive into my favorite special effects. So, first off, what are practical effects? In film and television, practical effects are real world special effects created physically on set without the use of computer graphics. Prosthetics, makeup, animatronics, and live action, where their elements are just a few examples of special effects, all of which are overseen by the special effects department. So let's go on ahead and talk about my favorite special effects. Practical effects. So my first one that I want to actually talk about is Star Wars, because of the fact Star Wars is actually one of my favorite films. The very first one, the Star Wars: A New Hope. And I just want to say the reason why I love Star Wars is because of the fact that you have the lore, but not only do you have the lore, but you have the originality and stuff like that, and the authenticity of what George Lucas actually brought us as well with those special effects. Especially whenever you look at the whole entire deal, when you have the creature design, then you also have, of course, you wind up having George Lucas doing what he always does in every Star Wars film. He gives us great lightsaber battles. Then also, too, not to mention, you also have Yoda, and, I just think that that's actually one of my favorite things, too. And of course, the exterior of the Death Star, too, for full shots of the space station. Model builders had made a complete 4 foot tall model of the entire Death Star. That was actually impressive, to be honest. And then to film starfighting attacks on the Death Star by X Wing fighters, the effects crew built a 30-foot panel of the Death Star's exterior surface that they actually destroyed with prosthetics for Luke Skywalker's trench run and the film's climax. They built a real 60-foot long trench in the studio's parking lot. And that is really hard to do and capture, especially during the 1970s when you think about this, when you have the very first Star Wars film. And they actually did something that was actually totally original, totally authentic, totally that was unexpected as well, which is something that's very impressive with George Lucas. Yes, he can be over eccentric with his special effects, trying to recreate things that he once done before. We also seen that with some of the stuff that he did with the Star Wars films. Like, for instance, I remember whenever they relaunched the original Star Wars trilogy and everything onto the big screen, they added in extra special effects to make the CGI stand out a little bit more and things like that. But when you look at the context, when you look at originality, when you look at Star Wars, for instance, it's just a film that's beyond the years at that time that anybody ever thought about doing. And to do a 60-foot long trench in the studio's parking lot, that is really impressive, to the point where, you know for a fact that he was actually ahead of other people's time. And he was in his prime, though, too, whenever it comes down to the originality. And then, of course, we wind up having the love that we have for Star Wars today. So now I'm going to get into another one that I want to talk about, and I'm diving into a little bit of horror today. So we actually have American Werewolf in London, not American Werewolf in Paris. Which American Werewolf in Paris is good, but not as good as American Werewolf in London. For instance, this movie came out in 1981. So the most memorable part of John Linda's horror comedy is the graphic werewolf transformation scene. The transformation scene is just enough to actually give you goosebumps, to be honest with you. The prosthetics and the way they actually do the transformation was perfect, right on the nose. It has this runny type of feel to it, this texture that makes it look like a werewolf is actually transforming out of this guy's body, which to me is actually was hard to capture back in the 1980s and everything too. Yes, we have our Wes Craven, we also have Nightmare on Elm Street and stuff like that during that time. But when you look at the transformation, when you look at originality of the American Werewolf in London, and also too, whenever one of the matter of fact, one of the characters that winds up dying winds up following that character throughout the film, the whole entire prosthetics of him following around the main character and everything too, was something haunting, something terrifying. He was really zombified, and the makeup was really, really creepy as well. So that's something else I really liked about that too. But also too, you also have to look at Rick Baker, who won the Academy Award for his work that changed the face of horror makeup forever. With terrifying precision, Baker used prosthetics, fake limbs, and several other practical effects techniques to gruesomely turn the main character into a werewolf. Without any digital effects, the character's body grows a carpet of hair. His entire skeleton, like I said, drastically shifts in elegance, the sound of crackling bones, and his human face is replaced with wolf ears and a snout. So that's one of the things that I liked within where of the whole entire practical effects of that film was the transformation, the bones cracking, the sound effects for it is fantastic. And it makes it actually make it stand out to where a wolf is actually transforming throughout this guy's body. Also, to American Werewolf in Paris, it had some CGI moments in it, mixed in with some practical effects. But when you're looking at airiness, when you're looking at the creepiness, when you're looking at stuff like that, to me, the original American Werewolf in Paris, the original Nightmare, the original American Werewolf in London is hands down one of the best horror films that you can actually watch during Halloween or whenever you just want to pop in something to scare yourself to death. But that's actually one of those movies that stand out for me. Now, here's another thing I want to mention here. So I have Dune. The 1984 Dune is actually my number 3. And let me just tell you this. The reason why this film stands out to me is because, yes, George Lucas did take some stuff from that lore, from the books, to make his movie of Star Wars. But when you look at the originality, when you look at the context of it, and David Lynch's sci-fi adaptation of the Frank Herbert novel, Lynch's special effects crew created the sandstorms using special models, miniature sets, and blue screens. They created various sizes of sandworms, puppets, the largest of which was 20 feet long. The puppeteers operated by pulling cables to make the sandworm move and open their mouths, which is very impressive because in those times, they actually had to figure out a way to make this happen. If it's in the script, they have to try and figure out how to adapt what was on black and white writing and to adapt it into film during that time. And that's actually a hard thing to capture if you think about it, because of the fact that how do you make a sandworm? We never know. How does it work? How does it go underneath the ground? How does it come up? How does it use his mouth? How do we make this thing as threatening as possible, but not try and make it over the top, over cheesy, especially in today's time? And the way they did it was fantastic in Dune. I think that this movie doesn't hold up as quite as well. I prefer the remake or the continuation of Dune over this one. But when it comes down to special effects, when it comes down to practical effects, this is the one that you would want to show your class. If you're into filmmaking or anything like that, if you're into going to school to be a filmmaker, I recommend checking out this one and then compare it to the new Dune film. I think that you guys would actually love that. So, next I have on the list is my number 4, which is the 1993's the groundbreaking practical effect dinosaur effects and Steven Spielberg's blockbuster, and it's of course Jurassic Park. And get this, he's basically the brainchild of Master Special Effects if you think about it. Especially when you look at Jaws, when you look at E.T., when you look at every other film that Steven Spielberg had made during that time, especially if you think about the Indiana Jones franchise as well, you can't go wrong with Steven Spielberg. And like I said, he's the blockbuster brainchild of Master Special Effects. And artist Stan Winston and his effects crew. Winston's crown jewel creation was the Tyrannosaurus Rex model that was 20 feet tall and 40 feet long. Other memorable dinosaurs brought to life by Winston's team include the Traposaurus, the chewing of Brachiosaurus. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. The venom-spitting dinosaur that was actually in the movie as well. That was just, to me, those dinosaurs, even though they were practical, they also made them into CGI as well. And some of the CGI effects actually hold up today. If you look at how it was made and everything, and that's actually the perfect way, the perfect transition of making practical effects, mixing it in CGI and how it actually works. And also, too, it still gives you that creepy area thing. That T-Rex still scares me today, to be honest with you. Especially that scene where we wind up seeing the van tipped over, and then, of course, the kids are stuck underneath it, and then you'll have that one guy who's trying to use the bathroom and everything, too, and then all of a sudden the T-Rex comes over there and just goes where the bathroom is and everything and chews that one guy up. Oh, my God. And then, of course, the perfect line that we wind up hearing is, well, when you gotta go, you gotta go. But still, even that poison, the one that spits the poison out of you and puts it in your face, oh my God, that freaked me out as a kid, knowing that this dinosaur, if this dinosaur was real at that time. Because here's the thing, that I believe that dinosaur, if correct me if I'm wrong, was just added in there just for a scare. And I gotta say, that's the most iconic dinosaur that Steven Spielberg made in the original Jurassic Park series, aside from the T-Rex. But the originality behind the book itself was a whole lot gorier, a whole lot more gruesome than what they actually showed on the screen. But man, I love what they did with that. I love what Steven Spielberg did with that. I thought he did a fantastic job with the special effects for Jurassic Park. I think that it still holds up today. The originality behind it, also to the authenticity of it, and then of course, blending in CGI with the practical effects it's still scary even today. And of course, now we actually have Jurassic World Dominion, and coming up with this new Jurassic Park World movie. So it's a continuation of how much progression that special effects once were in the 90s, and then going all the way into now on how they actually overpower with the CGI. So you can see the transformation throughout the years. So my next one I want to talk about is Apollo 13. And this movie, of course, stars Tom Hanks. It's also is probably one of my favorite movies that I saw back in 1995. But it's based off of real life, though, too. Instead of using CGI to make the Apollo 13 astronauts appear weightless in space, director Ron Howard. Now, Ron Howard, to me, is a great director when you look at it. His films back in the 90s and everything, too. But Ron Howard decided to build the spacecraft set inside NASA's Vomit Comet, a special aircraft capable of simulating zero gravity by dipping and climbing at the fast speeds. This allowed Howard to film his actors in real-life zero-gravity environment for 25 seconds at a time. And that's, to me, is very impressive, that something that Ron Howard did. Because everybody wants to go ahead, let's use CGI. Let's go ahead and just do what we normally do with every other space movie and stuff like that. But Ron, he decided to go ahead and use the zero gravity by dipping and climbing the fast speeds. To be honest with you, the Vomit Comet was actually the best way to go about it. And especially if you look at the making of it, it looks like it's actually real. It looks like that you can actually be in zero gravity and have that realism of it, of these actors actually portraying those astronauts, which is very impressive for back then. I think that you guys will be in for a treat if you guys go in and check out Apollo 13. But the special effects, to me, still holds up for that one as well. And I would even have to say, even with Jurassic Park, even with Apollo 13, if you're a film student who's studying film, go back and check some of these films out and see how much the special effects has changed since now, in the 90s, and then compared to now. Let's see which one you like better. I think that will be actually a fun thing to do. So the next thing I have is Mad Max Fury Road. Now, this is one of my favorite movies. Of course, I did a review with it with Jimmy O from JoeBlow.com. But what I have to say is this. Mad Max Fury Road is hands down one of my favorite movies. Also, too, when you look at George Miller and what he's done, George Romero, sorry about that. When you look at how things were done on the screen and everything, he mixed special effects in with, he used practical and also CGI, but man, did it look great. And here's the thing, was actually praised upon, as a matter of fact, it was actually praised upon the release for his adherence to old school action and practical effects, and it resulted in 6 technical Academy Awards, including Best Production Design and Best Film Editing. And even though the CGI was used to touch up various scenes like the desert scene and things like that, but for the most part, what you saw in Fury Road was all real. And that's something that was actually pretty cool, because even the part with the guitar player on top of that rise thing, that was crazy. It was like me going to a Slipknot concert and seeing that crazy thing and Corey Taylor singing. That's what it reminds me of, to be honest. But here's the thing. I love it because it also reminds me of like an MGM kind of skit that they would actually put on for us if we went to Florida or Universal Studios and stuff like that, and seeing how you have these stilts climbing on top of the tanks and stuff like that, and also too Tom Hardy not barely speaking any words or dialogue or anything like that, and being intrigued into it. Excuse me, but I think that Mad Max Fury Road is the perfect movie whenever you look at it. When you look at the pacing of it, when you look at the action of it, when you look at the continuation of what Mel Gibson did, and this is basically, not a reboot or anything like that. It's just a continuation of the Mad Max character rather than just rebooting everything, which is something that has been done and people are fatigued of. So having a continuation of a story that was once being told by actor Mel Gibson and then having Tom Hardy do it was fantastic. The special effects to me was good. The editing was good. No wonder why this thing won a couple of awards at the Academy Awards. So that's going to be, matter of fact, I would have to say that's actually my number 6. My number 7 would be the hallway fight in the movie Inception with Christopher Nolan. And he loves a good practical effect, and it makes his movies all that more interesting and convincing. Yes, more movies like Inception and Bizarro, science fiction, nonsense, but its practical effects help sell its world. And also, too, the events and the transfer within it perhaps is the greatest practical effect in the movie is the rotating hallway. To accomplish the effect, a 100-foot hallway was constructed on 8 concentric rings and powered by 2 enormous motors. It was a ton of work, but the results were simply breathtaking. And also, too, I want to mention this, too. Number 8 for my other one, too, is another Christopher Nolan movie. And matter of fact, we just got done reviewing this not too long ago, and it's The Dark Knight Rises with Bane's Escape. It only seems suitable to end the list. Here's the thing. I'm not ending the list yet. This was actually going to be me ending it with 8. But I always like to go a little bit further and go with 10. That's just me. That's how I like to make my top 10 list, not a top 7 or 8 list, because it doesn't make sense. It seems like it's incomplete and not cohesive. But The Dark Knight Rises, it only seems suitable to actually put this on my list because with another Christopher Nolan practical effect and myself, fans were a little torn on the quality of The Dark Knight Rises. But everyone, and including myself, here's the thing. I think that the opening plane sequence was a top-notch filmmaking. The entire ordeal required real skydivers in a fuselage being flown over Scotland and real stuntmen desperately hanging on to the dangling fuselage. And also, too, in the end, the effect looked terrific, and it gave Bane one of the greatest openings of a villain could possibly ask for. And, and now, here's the thing. I always said that The Dark Knight Rises probably might be the weakest of the trilogy when it comes down to Nolan, but I have to give Nolan whatever credit's due, is the fact that you have Tom Hardy, you have him as Bane, and then of course you wind up doing this practical effect with the airplane, and you don't know how this is actually going to land, pun intended. You don't know how this is actually going to be played out once you go into the editing process and stuff like that. But man, the fact that they used real skydivers, the fact that they were really careful, and also too, Christopher Nolan knows what he wants when it comes down to realism, and also on his practical effects team. Man, that's one of the reasons why The Dark Knight Rises is on my list. Now, there's 2 other movies that I want to talk about. One is going to be The Winter Soldier. This is my number 9. It's actually one of my favorite Captain America movies, Captain America, The Winter Soldier. And the practical effects behind that is just the action sequences, the way that was actually shot with Chris Evans. And of course, you wind up having Sebastian Stan as the Winter Soldier. The fighting styles was really good. The fight choreography was on point. The practical effects within the movie itself was on point. Everything about this film was laid out and carefully designed in a fantastic way. I love the Captain America, the Winter Soldier. So now I'm wrapping up with my number 10, which is John Wick. Now, John Wick was a movie that came out in 2014. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was 2014. and it starred Keanu Reeves, and that franchise is still going. I still love that franchise. I own all three of those John Wick movies, and I can't wait for the fourth one. And I can't wait until we actually see the prequel or the move or the hotel that is about the Continental. But with that being said, when you look at the fights choreography with that, especially whenever he has to go through special op training and FBI training and learning how to do a gun and all that other stuff, that is very hard to do. And even whenever he does his whole entire kung fu thing, his martial arts and everything is also different. His stance is different than what he normally does whenever he was playing, of course, Neo and everything. But, man, you know, I have to say, Keanu Reeves is a total badass whenever it comes down to the John Wick series. And also, too, I just want to point this out. Like the other scenes, like in the third film, for me was the library scene. Then, of course, in the first movie, I want to. Here's another thing though, too. In the first movie, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the movie for what it was. The previews came out maybe a day or two before the movie was actually released, but man, was it a great film. So, anyways, that's gonna be it as far as this my top 10 list of my favorite practical effects. I hope that you guys enjoyed this. I'm sorry for the noise in the background. I didn't realize I had my phone off and vibrate, but I do appreciate you guys tuning in. But if you guys want to, go on ahead, smash that like button, smash the subscribe button. Don't forget to go on ahead, like, comment, and all that other stuff. Also, too, go on ahead and do this too. Go on ahead and go over to Good Pods, go over to Apple Podcasts and Spotify as well to get to go on ahead, rate individual episodes. Tell us what you think about those individual episodes. And of course, if you want to see something new, just go on ahead, hit that notification button to allow you guys to know when we have something new coming out. Tonight at 8 o'clock Central Time, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, I'm going to be on the air with Alex, and Alex and I are going to be matter of fact, we're actually going to be interviewing some people from the movie Birdies. We actually did a review for Birdies, so go on ahead, check that out. And that's going to be at 9 o'clock Central Time, 10 o'clock Eastern, and 7 o'clock Pacific Time. Then, of course, if you want to donate to the page, all you have to do is head over to buyusacoffee.com/movie lovers, and that's how you can donate $5 to $10 over there. But of course, just liking, subscribing, commenting below also helps us out in a big way too. Then, of course, go on ahead, follow me underneath Movie Lovers TV Lovers Unite on Facebook, and underneath the same brand name on Instagram and on Pinterest as well. Then, of course, follow me underneath Movie Lovers Unit on Twitter, Movie Lovers Unit 0 on TikTok. And if you want to reach out to me, or if you want to be on the channel or anything like that, or if you're a sponsor, just go ahead and reach out to me at movieloversunite@gmail.com. And that's everywhere that you guys can go ahead and reach me at. And always until next time, guys, it's been real. It's been fun. I hope that you guys go on ahead, check me out at 9 o'clock tonight. And always until next time, guys, bye-bye.